The lights burned bright on the main stage of the People's Roundtable, a rare, high-stakes broadcast drawing millions that evening. America was watching, and not passively. They were gripping the edges of their seats. On one side sat former President Donald Trump, the embodiment of power, spectacle, and relentless branding. On the other, Denzel Washington, the sharp-eyed actor known for more than just his craft, known for his silence, and what happened when he broke it. The moment began with barely a breath. Trump adjusted his red tie, leaned into the mic, and smirked. "You know, I started a movement," he said, voice oozing confidence. "The biggest one this country's ever seen. The rallies, the hats, the flags, people believe again. That's leadership." The crowd clapped. But the camera didn't cut away. It held on Denzel, quiet, unreadable. Then, he blinked. Leaned forward. And with that signature tone, calm, unshaken, he spoke. "No," Denzel said. "That's marketing." The audience froze. "You wrap it in slogans, throw it on a hat, and call it patriotism," he continued, now speaking directly to Trump. "But I've seen real movements. They bleed. They don't brand." Trump raised an eyebrow, interrupting. "Are you saying my supporters are blind? Because I think they're some of the smartest people in this country. They know truth when they see it. Unlike Hollywood." "This isn't about Hollywood," Denzel cut in, sharper now. "This is about pain being sold for profit. You didn't start a movement. You started a merchandise line." Gasps erupted. The moderator tried to intervene, too late. Trump's face tightened. "Listen, Denzel. You may play tough guys on screen, but I've dealt with tougher. You don't intimidate me." Denzel didn't blink. "This isn't intimidation. This is accountability. You told coal miners you'd save their jobs, then cut funding to worker safety. You shouted about crime, then pardoned criminals in suits. That's not a movement. That's a mirror, and you're hoping nobody looks too close." The studio had never been this still. Then applause. Scattered at first, then rising. Trump leaned back, jaw clenched. He tapped the table, like trying to reassert dominance. "I rebuilt this country," he growled. Denzel leaned in. "You rebuilt your brand." Trump didn't wait for the applause to fade. He jabbed a finger toward Denzel, his voice slicing through the air. "You know what your problem is?" he barked. "You think every working-class American who supports me is too dumb to see through the noise. But they see through you." Another millionaire actor lecturing them about truth from a mansion in Beverly Hills. Denzel stayed still. His stillness made the words hit harder. "I'm not speaking at them, Donald," he said, eyes locked in. "I'm speaking for the ones who've been left behind, again and again. By politicians, by corporations, and yes, by Hollywood too. I'm not exempt. But I own that." "Do you?" The tension curled in the room like smoke. Trump scoffed. "I gave them jobs. I brought manufacturing back. I gave them hope." "You gave them slogans," Denzel replied sharply. "Hope doesn't come in all caps and on a red hat." The crowd reacted, half cheers, half groans. It wasn't a debate anymore. It was a reckoning. Trump leaned in, his voice lower now, more dangerous. "Let me tell you something about power. You either take it or get taken. I took it, and the people followed." "And where did you take them?" Denzel snapped. "To a Capitol riot? To division so deep families can't sit at the same table anymore?" The moderator chimed in weakly. "Let's keep this civil." But Trump was fired up. "You act like you're the voice of reason. But you're a performer. A script reader. You don't know what it's like to make decisions that shape nations." Denzel sat back, and for the first time, smiled, not out of humor, but out of clarity. "You're right," he said. "I read scripts. You rewrote the truth." Boom. Another wave of gasps hit the room. The studio audience, politically mixed by design, was caught in the crossfire of two worlds, one built on image, the other on integrity. Trump wasn't backing down. He gestured toward Denzel again. Everything you just said? That's why people don't trust your kind. You lecture, you moralize, then go back to your gated community. Denzel's voice dropped to a near whisper. And you go back to Mar-a-Lago, and call it America. He stood up slowly, letting the words hang. This isn't about me, Donald. This is about who we let define our reality, a performer who acts, or a leader who performs. The moderator tried to pivot. Let's move to healthcare. Denzel didn't blink. No, let's stay right here, he said, pointing at Trump. Because this isn't about policies. It's about how you manipulate pain. Trump straightened. Oh, so now I manipulate pain? I think I listened to it. That's why they voted for me. No, Denzel countered, they voted for what they were promised, not what they got. You turned suffering into branding. Blue-collar rage into rally merchandise. You turned coal dust into gold, for you. The studio was dead silent. Trump leaned forward, his voice cold. I made millions believe again. You made them perform their anger, Denzel snapped. You fed them a script where they were always victims, and you, their savior. That's not leadership. That's exploitation. A few in the crowd shouted, "Let him speak," while others applauded Denzel. Trump smirked, unbothered. People love me because I say what they feel. No, Denzel said, they love you because no one else showed up. You didn't win the soul of America, you filled its silence. Trump's face shifted. He wasn't used to being cornered like this. Especially not by someone who wasn't afraid of him. I built towers, movies just build illusions, Trump threw back. You built towers? Denzel echoed. I've stood in funeral homes with mothers who lost their sons to a system you ignored. I've walked through the silence of neighborhoods you branded dangerous. You built towers, I buried truth. The moderator stepped in again. Gentlemen. Denzel turned to the camera. I'm not here for a soundbite. I'm here because the people watching are tired of seeing their stories twisted into talking points. Trump couldn't resist. Says the actor. Tell me, which part are you playing now? The preacher or the prophet? Denzel took a breath. Neither. I'm playing the man who's done pretending. The lights dimmed slightly. The tension rose again. This wasn't just television. It was truth, raw and unfiltered. And it wasn't done yet. Denzel's words echoed like thunder through the studio. Trump, though rattled, adjusted his tie and smiled, that infamous, smug smile. You act like I owe you something, he said. You think just because you can speak well and look serious, that makes you right? Denzel didn't flinch. You don't owe me anything. But you owe this country the truth, and you've been dodging that bill for years. Trump chuckled. People don't want truth, Denzel. They want hope. They want to feel like someone's fighting for them. No, Denzel said firmly, stepping closer, they want to stop bleeding. You walk into coal towns and promise resurrection while gutting healthcare. You sit in boardrooms and call it patriotism while veterans sleep in parking lots. Trump tried to wave him off. You're preaching again. I'm exposing, Denzel interrupted. Because you keep branding failure as flair. You don't lead, you market. Everything's a campaign, everything's a pitch. And people are tired of being your storyline. The moderator was tense now. Gentlemen, let's keep it civil. But Denzel raised his voice. Civil? You want civil? Tell that to the mother who watched her child overdose because treatment centers lost funding. Tell that to the steel worker who got replaced by a slogan. Trump snapped, you done? Not even close, Denzel shot back. Because when you speak, it's about ego. When I speak, it's about bodies, real ones. And I won't let you polish pain into propaganda. Trump stood, mic in hand now. I gave people pride back. You gave them costumes, Denzel said. You dressed them in red hats and called it redemption. The audience gasped. Someone in the crowd whispered, "He's not holding back." Trump sat slowly, jaw tight. You think you're the voice of truth? I am a mirror, Denzel said, eyes locked in. And tonight, you're finally seeing the cracks. Trump leaned back in his chair, arms folded. You done with your little speech, Hollywood? Denzel didn't break eye contact. See, that's your default, Hollywood. Like saying that makes my words less real. But truth doesn't need a teleprompter, and I didn't come here for applause. I came here because your lies have consequences. Trump leaned forward. And what about your platform, huh? You stand on stages, give award speeches, drop a few poetic lines and disappear. Where were you when real work needed to be done? Denzel took a breath. I was in South Side schools. In juvenile halls. In VA hospitals. Where the cameras weren't. Trump scoffed. Congratulations. Want a medal? I want accountability, Denzel said, voice sharp. And I want the audience watching to stop mistaking charisma for courage. Because when you take a mic, it's not leadership, it's performance. The camera cut to Trump, whose face was tightening with every word. Let me tell you something, Denzel, he growled. You don't know what it's like to be hated for telling the truth. I do, Denzel answered calmly. The difference is, I didn't build a brand off of it. That line hung in the air like smoke from a fresh fire. The moderator, now visibly overwhelmed, attempted again, let's. No, Denzel raised his hand. We can't just pivot when the discomfort begins. That's why nothing changes. Every time it gets real, we wrap it in sound bites and move on. Not tonight. Trump's voice dropped. You think you're better than me? I think I'm not afraid of you, Denzel said. And that really pisses you off. The room tensed. Even the light seemed to dim for a second, as if the truth had weight. Then Denzel looked directly into the camera. To everyone watching, don't let your pain be a product. Don't let your dignity be draped in slogans. He leaned back in his chair slowly, controlled. Trump's silence was louder than his voice had ever been. And for the first time tonight, he blinked. Cut to black. Trump regained his composure, fixing his cuffs with slow, deliberate motions. You done sermonizing? He said, mockingly. Because if I wanted a preacher, I'd have gone to church. Denzel leaned forward, hands folded, his tone now quieter, sharper. You didn't come here to debate. You came here to bait. You came with lines ready, tweets queued, merch printed. You're not running a movement. You're running a business. Outrage is your product. Trump gave a smirk. And it's working. Look at the ratings tonight. Denzel didn't blink. So was the opioid crisis. Doesn't mean it was good for the country. The audience stirred, murmurs, gasps, heads turning. Trump straightened. That's a cheap shot. No, Denzel said, it's the invoice. For every lie, every fear you sold like a drug. Trump snapped, you think people listen to you because you're wise? No, they listen because you're famous. Denzel nodded slowly. And that's exactly why I'm here. Because I won't use that fame to coddle comfort. I'll use it to confront power, especially when it dresses itself in patriotism while robbing the people it claims to protect. Trump rolled his eyes. This is classic elitist garbage. You stand in front of a camera and act like a savior. I don't need to be a savior, Denzel shot back. Just a mirror. And what you're seeing right now, maybe for the first time, is the part of America you've never had to answer to. The moderator leaned in, whispering something to the producers through an earpiece. Denzel, still locked on Trump, added, you can call it whatever you want, theater, ego, revenge. But tonight, this is what truth looks like when it refuses to yield. And just then, the audience gave its first, unscripted reaction, not a cheer, not a shout. Silence. A kind of silence that follows a door being slammed shut and locked. Trump leaned in, his voice low and sharp. You talk like you're doing them a favor. You think working-class folks want your pity, Denzel? Denzel tilted his head. No, they want justice. But they'll take theater when justice doesn't show up. The room grew colder. Trump pounced. You wouldn't last a day in real politics. You'd crumble. No scripts, no edits, no second takes. I don't need scripts, Denzel said. I lived what you pretend to fix. While you branded pain, I buried friends. Trump smirked. And yet here we are. You, a guest on a show you swore you'd never do. Denzel smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I came here not for you. I came for them. The ones who still believe character matters. Who haven't sold their soul for slogans and yard signs. Trump waved his hand. You're overestimating your importance. My people chant my name. They chant your name, Denzel replied, but they don't know the bill. They cheer as you promise walls, tax cuts, enemies. But when the lights go off, they're still broke, still scared, still waiting. Trump narrowed his eyes. They believe in me. No, Denzel said. They believe in something. You just happened to be standing there when hope got desperate. A pause. The moderator interjected again, attempting to steer things, but Denzel lifted a hand, calmly silencing him. Then turned back to Trump. You said I'm not real? That I play characters? Then let me be clear, the only role I ever hated was pretending silence didn't cost lives. The camera panned out slightly, showing both men side by side, not equal, not balanced, but locked in an unsparing stare down. Two versions of America, colliding. And not a single word from the audience. Because this wasn't for applause anymore. It was for history. The moderator cleared his throat, trying once more to de-escalate. Let's move on to policy. But Denzel wasn't done. He leaned forward, eyes locked on Trump like a man who had nothing left to lose and everything still left to say. You talk about loyalty like it's something you've ever had to earn, Denzel said, his voice low but unwavering. But all you've done is buy silence or punish those who speak. Trump sat up straighter, jaw clenched. I've earned more than you ever will. Built more. Employed more. Protected more. You protected your image, Denzel cut in. You built towers but never shelter. You employed people but underpaid them. You didn't protect the vulnerable, you exposed them. The audience froze. Some looked down, others leaned in, breath held. The room no longer felt like a studio. It felt like a reckoning. Trump gestured broadly. You sit there in your tailored suit, speaking in riddles like you're some moral prophet. Where were you when this country bled? On a movie set? Denzel didn't flinch. I was in the neighborhoods you ignored. I was at the funerals you never acknowledged. I didn't need a microphone to care. Trump's lips curled. You're an actor, Denzel. You make a living pretending. Denzel nodded once, slowly. And you're a salesman. But at least I admit it's performance. You've conned half a country into thinking cruelty is courage. That mocking the weak is leadership. The moderator sat back, defeated. There would be no control over this anymore. You use patriotism like a brand, Denzel continued, not a burden. You wave flags, but never carry caskets. You chant America first, but mean America yours. Trump snapped back. You think people care about your righteous monologues? They want results. Denzel leaned closer. And what did they get? A man who turned truth into a business model. Who sold division like it was freedom. Silence again. Thicker now. Heavier. And then, he delivered the line that silenced the whole studio. Silence was never free, Mr. Trump. It just cost someone else. The cameras caught it all. The shift in Trump's posture. The slight tremble in the moderator's voice as he moved to commercial. The studio, a battlefield of ideas. But one thing was clear, this wasn't about winning the debate anymore. It was about who could still look themselves in the mirror. And that question hung in the air, unanswered. When the show returned from commercial break, something was different. The energy in the room wasn't just tense, it was volatile. The audience didn't clap. They didn't boo. They sat still, absorbing every word like it might rewrite something inside them. Trump straightened his tie, the trademark bravado dulled by the sting of Denzel's last line. He looked directly into the camera and tried to reclaim ground. America needs strength. Not sensitivity. You can't lead by crying into the microphone. Denzel didn't even blink. He turned toward the audience, then back to Trump. You still think this is about emotion? He asked. About who tears up and who shouts loudest? Trump smirked, but it was forced. This is about results. About action. That's what I did for 4 years. Denzel's tone sharpened. You acted, all right. You acted like truth was optional. Like facts were flexible. You treated leadership like branding. Every crisis, an ad. Every loss, someone else's fault. Trump leaned in, voice lower. You've never sat in that chair, Denzel. You don't know what pressure feels like at that level. And yet somehow, Denzel replied, I managed to live under your decisions, without hiding behind excuses. The moderator's voice cracked in. Gentlemen, please. No, Denzel said, cutting him off. Let's not, please, this moment away. He looked directly at Trump again. You talk about pressure? Try watching mothers bury their sons while the news spins it as statistics. Try hearing your community scream and being told it's a performance. The camera closed in on Trump, then back to Denzel. This isn't Hollywood to me, Denzel continued. This is home. And when home hurts, I don't get to script the ending. I have to live it. Trump shook his head. The country needs fighters, not feelings. That's when Denzel delivered the line that broke through every screen. The country needs truth, not tantrums. It needs leaders who face pain, not exploit it. A ripple moved through the audience, low murmurs, some nods, a few stunned expressions. And let me tell you something else, Denzel added, eyes locked on Trump. The crowd isn't your mirror. Just because they cheer doesn't mean you're right. Sometimes, they cheer out of fear. Out of habit. Or worse, because you've made them forget what real courage looks like. Trump crossed his arms, visibly irritated now. But Denzel stayed firm. The stage wasn't a battleground anymore. It was a trial. And the verdict was starting to form, not in applause or boos, but in silence. As the final segment began, the host sat frozen, his carefully rehearsed neutrality now replaced by awe. This wasn't just a debate anymore. It had become a reckoning. A cultural autopsy. And the entire country was watching it unfold live. Trump leaned into his mic again, this time measured, his voice low and biting. You think you're the conscience of America? Just because you know how to speak in slow, dramatic sentences? You're an actor, Denzel. That's all. Denzel stared at him, calm but cutting. You keep saying that like it's an insult. But maybe that's because you've never understood the weight of truth-telling when the stakes are real. He took a breath, then delivered his final salvo. Actors don't just play roles. We study humanity. We reflect it. And sometimes, we reveal the parts no one wants to look at. Including the ones in power. The crowd fell silent again, no applause, no movement, just the sound of reality settling in. Trump looked around, clearly sensing the shift. You want to talk truth, he snapped. Then admit this, I gave this country jobs. I gave it a voice. Denzel didn't flinch. You gave it noise, he said coldly. And mistook it for meaning. He turned back to the camera. This is not about left or right. It's about who still remembers that power isn't a spotlight, it's a responsibility. He paused just long enough for the weight to land. History won't remember the hashtags. Or the rallies. Or the tweets. It'll remember who stood still while others screamed. Who told the truth when it wasn't trending. And who reminded us that patriotism isn't loud, it's loyal. Trump exhaled sharply, muttering something under his breath, but it was lost in the growing tension. Then the moderator cleared his throat. That's all the time we have tonight. Denzel stood, buttoned his jacket slowly, and turned toward Trump one last time. You said this wasn't a movie set. You're right, he said. Because in real life, there are no retakes. And with that, he walked off stage. No applause followed. Just a stunned, unblinking room, and millions of viewers at home sitting in a silence louder than any headline. When truth becomes performance and leadership becomes branding, someone has to say stop. Denzel did more than speak, he stood. And whether you cheered or cringed, one thing's clear, this wasn't just a debate. It was a reality check. Subscribe for more moments that pull no punches. Because on this stage, silence isn't an option.